Well, everyone, it's sort of a weird day because Redfall, a game which we've been following very closely for a long time, is officially done. And I don't mean like, oh, now they're closing or anything, because they've already been closed down. What I mean is that the game received its final update. It will never get another one, and it actually adds a lot. You can see they've added offline mode, single player pausing, new unrivaled weapon, revamped neighborhood and nest systems, new enemy encounters in Redfall Commons, DLSS 3.0, and a bunch more. Among those other improvements are things such as improved stability, better rendering, better frame times to make it less like laggy during combat, all sorts of little bitty quality of life improvements. And I will say, having left all my settings unchanged from the last time I made a Redfall video, the game is running significantly better, much more stable, and actually is far more responsive than I remember it being. And maybe that's just me like with rose-tinted glasses looking at this, but it feels much better to play. And so as you're fighting waves of enemies and vampires come at you, you can now summon your vampiric boyfriend to fight for you, and he can help you take him down, which is nice. It's the best use for a vampire boyfriend I've come up with. And then we stab. See, it's pretty silky. Pretty silky, I'll give him that. Gotta reload, damn it. The AI seems better. They're much more responsive and aggressive. It just seems to be working really well. I'll give them that. Now, the reason today is particularly odd is just because nobody really expected to get here. Like when Microsoft announced they were closing down Arkane Austin, the studio behind this game, we all were like, okay, yeah, I mean, we kind of saw that coming, especially with how the game was received. If Microsoft needed to cut jobs, they were probably going to find the jobs from the studios that had the worst releases of the last year or two. So it sort of made sense, you know. It sucks to say, but I used the wrong skill. Stop it. Put the umbrella away. Stop it. I don't want this. There we go. Okay, there we go. Okay, and then I go up here and I can climb that way. Okay, see, that was cool. Totally intentional. But the point is, when they announced that they were closing down Arkane Austin, I think a lot of us were just like, okay, well, that's that. That's it. They're closing down the studio. The game's basically over now. The story of the game is over. They're not going to be able to make those improvements that they allegedly were working on, and that's that. But to their credit, the people over at Arkane Austin, even after they found out that they had been laid off and were losing their jobs, they still worked their butts off to get this out the door, which I think deserves some credit, because a lot of people would just be like, no, screw that. I'm done. You know, the story of the game's over. I don't need to work on it anymore. That's all, folks. But they actually made a point to deliver on the promises they had made to everybody when the game launched, that they were going to add offline mode, that they were going to improve things like encounter variety and how encounters actually spawned in the world, make sure that the big vampiric nests could be improved, which they've done by adding elder nests and stuff. So there's a lot of things that they've done, which I never really expected them to follow through on, especially after the closure. And honestly, after these most recent improvements, the game is pretty buttery, and you can actually like get moving pretty good as you blast through areas and fighting people. Like, it's actually playing pretty good now, and I think that's awesome. Of course, it's unfortunate that the studio had to close, and a year later, we're now at the point where the game is playing at a level where I think you could release this and it would have received maybe like 7s or 8s out of 10, because at least the game is functional and there's stuff to do now, and that stuff actually works. But I guess better late than never. You know, it's too bad that big publishers like Microsoft can't learn the lessons of a game like Redfall before everything crashes and burns, because the people at Arkane Austin, they just did their jobs. They were working as hard as they could on this game, and it just wasn't coming together. And there was reporting by Jason Schreier that was saying that those employees actually were hoping, after they were bought out by Microsoft, that they would have this project canceled and they could go back and work on something like a new Dishonored, for example. But that never happened, and Then we, of course, got this game, and they lose their jobs. Meanwhile, the executives over at Xbox that allowed this game to happen and be greenlit and funded, those people all still have their jobs. A lot of them got raises and bonuses, I'm sure, for cutting the budgets and making the business run more efficiently. And that just sucks. You know, the people that were ultimately responsible for Redfall as it launched are still in positions, you know, high up within the companies, are still making buku bucks and are doing just fine. But you know what? I feel like we should actually test some of this stuff that they've added in this update to the game, such as the offline stuff, such as the ability to pause the game in single player. So let's actually find enemies and see if we can pause the game. Okay, here we go. We got some enemies. Plink. They're shooting at me and I pause. We let it sit for a second, see if they're gonna kill me while the game is paused. Maybe. Okay, let's see. We close it down and yeah, sure enough, the game actually pauses. And I know it's funny to be like, oh, cutting edge feature, the game pauses. But the thing is, like, this was a live service game. This was meant to be like a always online co-op game. And so they thought they could kind of get away with it at launch of not having any sort of offline mode at all. And so they just didn't bother with it. They said, we'll add that later at launch. And then the game was canceled basically, but they've actually added it in. Let's try now going offline. So on my gaming PC, I have it hardwired into my router. So I'm just gonna unplug it. I have Wi-Fi turned off on this computer and we're gonna see if the game goes away once I unplug it. We'll see if it crashes, okay? Let's find out together. I think this is the first time I've unplugged a cable in a video, you see? You see, I've actually done it. There's the cable. We'll leave it there. And if we go here, you see the internet is no longer connected, but the game still plays. Just fine. Imagine that. So here we are, actually playing the game disconnected from the internet. So there's that. That's cool. Now listen, I know there's still going to be people in the comment section kind of reveling in this game's death because it represented a lot of the things that are currently wrong with the gaming industry. You know, the push for live service at the cost of creativity, the sacrificial lamb that was Arkane Austin at the altar of ZeniMax owners getting the most money out of the acquisition from Xbox. Like, I think it does represent a lot of the problems in the industry. I think it's unfortunate that talented devs had to suffer as a result of that, and that the people really responsible for this game didn't seemingly suffer any blowback except for maybe some nasty messages on Twitter, X, and in YouTube comments. But I think that what the message of today should perhaps be is that, to their credit, they've actually followed through on what they said they were going to do, which was to add offline play, to add pausing in single player mode, to improve performance, to improve the end game content and stuff like that. They've actually delivered on those promises, despite Microsoft basically firing everybody. Even after they found out they had lost their jobs, they still worked hard to deliver to the fans that still remained what they were promised. And I think that that's admirable. Like, is Redfall an amazing game now? I don't personally think so, but I do think that it's much closer to the game that people wanted today compared to where it was when the game launched. And I think that's only because despite all the blowback, despite all the negativity online because of the game's condition at launch, the team was still trying to turn it into something good. And that, even in and of itself, is an accomplishment, because so many studios and publishers, if there's a flop, they just dump it immediately. Like, look at the day before. That game launched and existed for like a day before it was completely gutted and abandoned and shut down. And granted, that was like technically a volunteer project. It wasn't really a great example of a game that ever looked real, but still, in the modern day, a lot of games get put together, and when they don't deliver, they just get abandoned quickly. But they were at least working on Redfall. There were other things they could have done better, such as communication with their audience, such as communication with media in general, to tell them, yes, we are working on the game still, we are working on improvements, but you know, I guess you live and you learn. And now I guess Arkane Austin won't have the chance to learn because they are shut down, but that's just how the cookie crumbles sometimes. I will say there are some really interesting posts on X today after the studio has officially closed and everything. Harvey Smith, one of the head honchos, you know, I hope you play it solo or with friends and try to see it with fresh eyes. Basically try to give the game a chance and get some enjoyment out of it, even if it's not a 10 out of 10, you know, you can still find some enjoyment with it. Another thing I wanted to post as we were packing up the offices at Arkane Austin, I snapped some of the design value posters we made and hung on the wall during Dishonored and Prey. And you can see if I apparently, oh, I'm disconnected from the internet. That's why, hold on. Let me plug it back in. Somebody out there was watching the video and was like, yeah, it's not gonna pull up, Luke, you dumbass. Just plug in your computer again. Okay, anyway, now I pull it up and you can see like all these cool little pieces of art and notes and stuff that they made, that they had in the studio that now is gone. Because here's the thing, even if you didn't like Redfall, as I frankly didn't and still don't really enjoy it, despite me playing it constantly, you still have to acknowledge that this studio was responsible for like Prey. Prey was an amazing game and still is. It's fantastic and mind-bending. It's really, really cool. And while the Arkane Austin that made that game is no longer really there and has kind of splintered off and disintegrated and now it's fully shut down, of course, I think it is still sad to see what was at one time a pretty big and influential studio in the gaming industry. It's just gone now, and it's gone, in my opinion, due to the greed of the executives over at ZeniMax that were pushing to try and get as many live service games as they possibly could out the door to make themselves look more appealing to Microsoft before the buyout. And that's ultimately why we got games like Fallout 76. It's why we got games like this greenlit. It's because they wanted to make themselves look like cash printing machines to Microsoft, and it helped them get a $7 billion offer for the company, but it also cost many people who didn't see a penny of that $7 billion. It cost them all their jobs, and in some cases, friendships and security, you know, living with their families in Austin. Now they have to move to find another job. It's just, there's cascading effects just because a couple of executives wanted to get more money for their big yacht collection. And, you know, human lives ultimately suffer as a result of those decisions. And I think it's important not to forget that. There is still a little bit of that OG launch charm. You know, even after these updates, we're still going to have some of that charm, which is just, it's good to see. It's good to see. You know, don't ever change. Don't ever change too much. Can I get a 2-in-1? Nope. I'll take the 1 though. Oh, well, yeah, okay. Oh, no. Oh, no. The game crashed. Oh. I don't even know what that means, but okay. Well, we'll try booting up again to wrap this video up. Okay, so maybe it's not all that much better. Okay, well. Maybe I'll... Oh, my God. It crashed again, dude. I try to like come up with a conclusion to the video that's like sort of feel good. Like, let's all just be thankful that the industry maybe is putting this behind them. I'm like trying to come up with some fun spin to make this not miserable and just like overall really sad and a bummer. But the game keeps crashing. It's like it doesn't want me to leave this on a good note. So I'm just here trying, and it's actively fighting me. It's like the game is sentient and mad at all those videos I made. Okay, we're back now. We'll see if we can get out the door. I don't know. Oh wait, what's this back here? What's back here? What's that? Huh. Maybe you should do what he says. Okay, we're back. Let me wrap this up before the game crashes again. I think it's unfortunate that the game ended up the way it did. I think it's really too bad because this game could have been something interesting, and it just sucks that they had to release it so broken in order for us to learn the lesson. And by us, I mean Microsoft and their executives. It just sucks that human people, as opposed to non-human people, have to lose their jobs and have their lives negatively affected in order for executives to maybe be like, oh, maybe we shouldn't have done that. But I mean, who am I kidding? We're still gonna get a bunch of other live service mess games. So like this is far from the end of it. We're gonna get even more of these things, and then they're gonna be like, why don't people like them? We thought you really loved these kinds of games. It's just gonna keep happening again and again. So who am I kidding? Everything sucks. Everything's terrible. Let's all just be sad and play games that they can't screw up, like chess. Let's all go play chess and checkers and Scrabble and just call it a day. Hello. Boom. Whoop. Thought you were dodging that way. You were not. There we go. Okay. Well, I don't know, guys. I don't know. Maybe this is just where we end it. Maybe this is the perfect symbolic conclusion for this game. That it just keeps crashing and not wanting to live. So maybe we should just let it die. I feel for everybody who lost their jobs, everybody who got laid off as a result of all of this, because I do believe that they were doing their absolute best and that it's not ultimately their fault that this game flopped. I think it's more of a design issue, a directorial issue, and an executive issue, but it doesn't really change the end product. The game is still the game at the end of the day, and even if they've added offline support and even if they've done that stuff, 3 crashes in the span of how long? My raw recording for this video is 35 minutes and 4 seconds right now. So in 35 minutes, I've had 3 crashes, and I don't know what the problem is. I don't know why it's doing it, but I'm not gonna keep digging to find out. I'm just going to call it there and bid Redfall adieu. Of course, thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe, like the video if you enjoyed it. That helps a ton. I will be going to Summer Game Fest here in just like a week or so. So if there's any games you'd like to see me pay particular attention to and cover more closely, let me know in the comment section, and I'll make sure to give those games extra attention, maybe a dedicated video or something like that. So let me know that in the comment section. But with all that said, thank you for watching. I love you all viciously, and I'll see you in the next video. Hugs and kisses. Bye-bye.